Welcome back, everyone. Gabe Goche here with the Southern Utah Hockey Report. Of course, I got my big buddy Tommy Rupp looking good. Tommy, how you doing, buddy?
Not too bad, brother. Had been a busy week, but it's been fun so far. A lot of good hockey to talk about, a lot of good things to talk about. So I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, me too, man. I'm stoked. So, episode 13, we got a lot of great stuff here for everyone. We're going to first start off with our segment one is going to be a recap of interviews that we've had in the past and just what stood out. What are some key points from those interviews and what's a common denominator from these interviews that we've talked about with a lot of the great people that we've been able to have on the show. And then we also have some other people that will be joining the show in future time. But segment one, we're going to highlight some key interviews that we've talked about. Segment two, give and go. That's going to be plain and simple. Tommy's got a lot of stuff that we're going to talk about. Go over Utah Hockey Club, go over Vegas Golden Knights. And then segment three, we're just going to cover everything in Utah hockey. Just talking about Southern Utah, what's happening Red Rock ball hockey, what is happening with KJ's Ice Bar and the Iron County Yeti. And we'll get into, the possibilities. What's on the horizon for hockey in Utah. So again, everyone, thank you for joining us. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, ring the bell too, and follow. So get notified when we do pop these out. And then, as I told you, we're going to continue to do something once a week. We're going to progress into more as the information starts to become more abundant, which it's starting to. But also, like I said, we just love talking hockey, and just like football, you can talk hockey every day. So
Absolutely.
why not do it here with the Southern Utah Hockey Report, right, Tommy?
Absolutely. Bring it on. Let's do it.
All right. So let's talk about a couple of interviews that have stood out. And I'm going to start with one because it also goes with an announcement that was just made. But first is highlighting the George Chalice interview. We had so many great pieces from that. But the one that I wanted to really highlight and stick on was he talked about the 4-5 level stages of a hockey player's central career. And this is where, Tommy, you brought up the part of how everyone we've talked to, it revolves around community, it revolves around volunteer time. But as we get into that, the third stage of the 4 stages is that U18 and junior level, right? And Tommy, this was a critical age for you as far as where you're going from Dubuque, what's the next steps, but then for players in Utah. And what just recently was announced, so through the USPHL, and this is another point that George talked about, is USA hockey and then non-USA hockey. And to be clear, is really the main difference is the insurance. Okay. So it's the insurance that's provided to the players on the ice for practice, for games, for tournaments, etc. They take care of a lot. So USA Hockey has their insurance, and then the USPHL has their own insurance. So it's two different things, but that's really the main difference is that insurance. But Tommy, what the USPHL just announced was and they announced it as the non-USA Hockey 18U League. Okay. Now, we've talked about junior hockey. We've talked about other levels of hockey. And George mentioned that right now in the United States, you have the USHL, where he said around 60 to 65% of those players are going Division One.
Right.
So that's where players that are U18, U20 are playing. But when it comes to development, the USA Hockey has the Tier 1 Elite League. They also have the NAP, which is the North American Prospects Hockey League, which is the affiliate of like the North American League. and then they have the high performance league. So there's quite a bit. Then there's the Central States, which is double A, triple A, but it rivals a lot of high level programs. So this is now where the USPHL is starting their own U18 high level triple A hockey. What do you take from all that?
Well, I just think it speaks to them trying to spread their brand of hockey. I think we all know that the game's moving at a fast pace, and it's moving at a fast pace, especially across the United States. And I think a lot of the years that we've spent under USA Hockey, I think they've been good years. But there's a lot of different things with USA Hockey, and if we have this many players wanting to demand to play hockey, and there's a different set of rules that we can use to our advantage, whether that's testing new things out or trying new situations, may grow the program in a way that we didn't see beforehand. And really, why not? Especially when you've got a brand like the USPHL right now. There's a lot of recruits coming out of there. There's a lot of different types of marketing that are happening that clearly they're getting the players that they want. They're getting the representation that they want. And because of that, they're getting to govern their own rules. And who knows? I think it's good for the game. It just speaks to what you said with George and how much it's growing and how important it is to categorize it in these categories themselves and really understand the growth, understand the opportunity, understand what you can go do now that was an opportunity, quite frankly, that wasn't there 10 years ago.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Excuse me. Now, just to go through it, and so Kevin Abrams, he's the USPHL senior advisor, and he's quoted. So he says, the league creates a direct pipeline from youth hockey to junior and college hockey, helping players develop the skills needed to thrive at the next level and catch the attention of scouts, end quote. So just like you talked about, is just creating that pipeline, and it's right there, verbatim. And I know you didn't see that before, but it's huge because what that does now, it also starts to make the territories more open and start to open up other opportunities for areas that may not meet the requirements to be considered a USA Hockey program. And I believe there are qualifications to be admitted into the leagues. But another quote, this one comes from the deputy commissioner, is Tony Zazowski. He says USA Hockey serves as the ultimate barrier to youth hockey development. The THF is looking forward for ways to serve independent teams in the US and Canada that are looking to provide top level AAA hockey, but are being blocked by USA Hockey affiliates. Yeah. And again, that's end quote, Deputy Commissioner Tony Zazowski. So essentially, like we talked about, is just opportunities, but it sounds like there's more to it than just high level hockey. It sounds like I said, sounds like there's some barrier of entry between USA Hockey and the USPHL. I don't know, man. The thing I see, if you're gonna have the product, put a good product, and then
right.
And with the insurance, like that's what it should be. Like just be the insurance, just handle the insurance, and then I don't know. There's a lot of politics that gets involved. That's why a lot of people don't talk about it, and quite frankly, it's tough to talk about it in a few things, right? Because one, there's so much information that you have to be accurate about and correct,
sure.
Before you start talking and getting into opinions and, I feel and all that stuff. You got to provide, the facts, essentially. That's what politics are. But then, you get feelings, feelings that are emotions and all that stuff. And do you operate on feelings? Do you operate on emotions? Do you operate on, what's being presented by the information and how you digest it? And and then make a logical solution based off that. So, like I
Well,
said, I
and
hate
just
that
to
question.
just to piggyback on that. Sorry to cut you off. I was
No,
just
please.
like I was just thinking about it. Like you said, I'm not really qualified enough to be accurate on the political sides of things, but I will say, I did notice a tournament up at the Enoch Ice Rink where I believe it's USA Hockey sanctioned. Like there's a couple of rules that I wasn't aware of, and I really don't like them. Like
There's a lot of rules that have changed. So,
it like
like, be specific. Would you see what's talking about?
you can't ice on a penalty kill
Oh,
anymore.
dude, that's yeah, that was. Oh man, that,
And no more delayed offsides. It's
I
back to
know.
instant offsides or whatever
Yeah,
they call it. And I can't stand that. It slows the
automatic.
flow of the game. Yeah, automatic. Thank you. Yeah. But I mean, I can at least speak to human experience because I grew up with USA Hockey. I remember when they went from automatic to the tag up offsides, which I was so happy about. Now they're going back to that, and then again the whole you can't ice it when you have a penalty kill now. So you have no out. Just
Right.
hope to God you can sauce it to an area where they can't get it like that.
Yeah, I
No,
know. And so that I was in Vegas when they actually implemented that because I remember Matt Johnson, my assistant. I got to get him on the. We got to get him on the show too. He's a
yeah,
riot. But anyway, he was so frustrated because he was coaching a Bantam team, and that's when they started it. They implemented it at the Bantam age level that you couldn't, like you said, they so the rule was you can't ice the puck. So if you're on the penalty kill, if you're the team that's down a player, you can't ice the puck to kill the time off the penalty, which is essentially why you have it's the penalty kill.
right,
So the reasoning behind it, and this is where the the game the game always tries to evolve, right? And it tries to evolve in, how can it be better? And so this was part of that evolvement of how can we create more scoring opportunities, goal scoring chances? How do we give more of an advantage to the offensive team, right?
right.
So that's where it got into the power play. So if you're on the power play, you basically can just try anything and force anything because the team can't clear the puck. Because if they do and they ice it, two things happen. One, the faceoff comes back down into their zone, and then two, you can't change.
Right, exactly.
It's just absurd. It was absurd. So, um, I think it's still absurd because it doesn't make sense to train the kids, for like what George was talking about, those stages of your career, and then all of a sudden get to another level where everything's different, and then you get like, because not every player is gonna be that creative player. There's gonna be players that are robotic. It's just
Right,
it's just how it is. Like
right.
you need those types of players. Like that's why hockey's such a great team because everyone does have a role. But for those guys that you can just tell them what to do and they'll go do it, you can, and that's what penalty killers are, right? They're those grinders. They're gonna say, hey, Tommy, go out and block the shot, go kill that penalty, and you can make a career doing that.
Well, and think about the product as far as marketing is concerned. If all of us are the NHL fans that we are, we love watching hockey media, hockey TV, all the way around. Well, what's every kid going to be asking themselves? Why can't we play those same rules? Right? Like, I mean, it's kind of weird that they're watching a game at the highest level and it's delayed offsides or it's tag up offsides, whatever you want to call it. But now they got to go with automatic. Or again,
Mhm.
they're watching Connor McDavid out there on the power play as if that's not a disadvantage enough. The
Yeah.
last thing that you hope for is being able to clear it out at the end. Can you imagine if you couldn't ice the puck in the NHL when they were on a power play?
Oh,
I mean, that's you've pretty much handcuffed the team on the side of like pure offense. I
Yeah.
don't think that's necessarily good either. But
Yeah. And that's where you can kind of get into that chess match or cat and mouse game, right? If it was in the NHL, excuse me, and you as the power play team, like I said, you can just take all these chances. You can get those guys moving around because if they ice the puck, then they can't change,
exactly.
And then you can have fresh legs come out and have your PP2 unit, your power play 2 unit come out. But it's just crazy how the rules have changed, the evolution of the game has changed. Uh, we're also embarking on Ovechkin, breaking Gretzky's record. That's gonna be
Yeah.
happening soon. So,
Yeah.
um,
Well, and I think just to put a bow on it, I think
yeah,
something that the PWHL that's they're trying something that's to
it's
increase
another big
offense,
one.
and it's something that I like. It's the jailbreak, where if you're
Yeah,
on a penalty kill and you score, you get your player back, which is typically the opposite, right? Where it's
I
like,
agree.
yeah, it's like, why can't we at least try that in favor of offense? Because then it's going to get more teams to take more risky plays on the penalty kill, which in turn is going to create your offense the other way. Because if they make a mistake, the puck could end up in the back of the net. But sometimes that risk may lead to another goal and they get their player back. It's great for
Yeah.
TV. But
No,
anyway,
I think that's a great thing. Instead of the no icing or anything like that, I think that's huge, the jailbreak, because
yeah,
it gives more of a role now to that penalty kill player,
correct.
you know? So then then essentially it now creates a whole new stat line of statisticians that are going to look at a penalty kill, right? And then what a player does on a penalty kill and all that stuff. So I think
Absolutely.
that would be huge
Yeah,
is to have that. But of course they got to start it at the young age,
sure.
or they go top down and just say, hey, we're starting at the NHL and we'd like to see this all throughout hockey. But no, the PWHL, that's another thing. And I know we're gonna get to some other interviews we've talked about, but that's actually gonna lead into the one that we talked about is with Melissa Mossberg, Mo, and girls hockey, where it's now starting to become that movement because we talked about just the difference in the sport of girls and boys, like how they think the game, right? How they see the game versus the boys, and it's more methodical. Now, when we talked about girls hockey with Mo, one of the things was Tommy starting at a young age, and we've talked about this before, where you see in other sports you have girl specific soccer or girl specific basketball, you have softball, but there's no specified starting point for girls hockey, which has been a huge deterrent, big barrier for entry. And then the girls that do get involved, they're playing the co-ed, but then at U14, that's when they start to break it off and then go into the girls' programs. And so this is where I want to talk about just the implementation, the programming of getting hockey started. And I feel this is where Utah Hockey Club, as a new franchise to the NHL, can
Right.
be a huge, huge footprint into this movement. Like, what do you think on that?
No, I think that it starts from the top, and especially where it comes well funded like that, it's great for branding. It's great for relationships and cross marketing kind of approaches to the game, and really it comes down to just more women getting involved in the game too. Like, I mean, it's as simple as finding your local program and asking how you can help. And I think that's what we've started to see is those ripple effects from the Utah Hockey Club coming in. I follow that Utah girls hockey Instagram page, and it's so awesome to see a couple times a week. Someone with the Utah Hockey Club's involved. Melissa's out there running drills, everything like that. It's so cool to see. It just goes to show you how much you can do when everyone just picks up a little bit. It starts from the ground up, and you set the example. You lead from the front, and that's exactly what these girls are doing here. They're creating their own opportunities. You watch those PWHL games; those are entertaining games. Like they set another attendance record the other day in Colorado.
Yeah,
And then Colorado, the crowd was actually chanting, "We want a team." So they're actually begging
I
for
had
a
a
women's team
I had
to
a lot of
come to the
friends.
city.
Yeah, I had a lot of friends that actually went to that game, and I saw on social media just the excitement. That was awesome, man. So
Yeah,
see that. I wouldn't be surprised if Colorado gets a team, or there's like an affiliate team with every NHL team. There's a women's team somewhere,
that'd be really smart. It'd
you
be
know.
really smart. Yeah,
So, but like not in the same city, right? Because you don't.
right,
That's another thing too, is you can have that affiliation,
right,
but you don't want it in the same city because you don't want to dilute the fan base,
right,
the market. You want to grow the market,
right,
So I don't know. That's commissioner talk.
right, right. Exactly. Yeah, let them sign those checks.
I know, right? But the other thing too is it you said with Melissa is just it revolves around the community and the involvement and being present, being involved, but being there consistently. And,
Mm.
and that's where Melissa's done an amazing job. The Lady Grizz have been doing great. Utah Hockey Club starting their off ice programming with the Learn to Play. So it's starting to grow, but like I said, it's the programming for girls. It needs to start at the beginning, from the U6, the U8 level. Give that opportunity for them, to play co-ed, but have that specified coaching. So. Uh,
Absolutely.
Now with that too, and again talking about community, Tommy, we have the Red Rock ball hockey community, and this was actually one of our first, I'd say, formal interviews was with Corey Henwood, the founder and president of Red Rock ball hockey. And the thing about Red Rock ball hockey, and as you know, the equipment, and this is where he talked about it in the interview of not only purchasing some gear, but the amount that's been donated, and then also the need for more, right? So and I know you've experienced it more than I have, but just talk about the growth of the equipment, but also essentially the pain that goes in what Corey's doing with the gear, every session.
No, absolutely. I mean, he's got a big bag of helmets, and it's probably about, oh, I don't know, 100 or so helmets that he's got to zip up in this huge bag, and that's on top of all the sticks that he brings as well. So that he's packing that around his Jeep Cherokee probably, I don't know, 16 weeks out of the year. And no, it's something we just don't have access to equipment down here quite yet, and that's something that we're obviously trying to help, build, even if it's like a mobile pro shop or anything like that. That would be that would be a
Was
big help
I was
there.
just gonna say that, man. Like that would be huge to have a mobile pro shop, you know, and give that opportunity for families. Like if they wanted to buy new helmets or a new set of gloves, it's like a food truck, right? They just or even like if you're going to like a NASCAR event, right? They have that mobile gift store. But
Right.
you're spot on because from there that just it grows because you then have more, and that would be a great opportunity for a mobile pro shop.
No,
100%.
absolutely. And I think that a lot of the kids too, like a lot of them just don't know what kind of equipment, there is ball hockey specific equipment, which is pretty cool. It was something I wasn't privy to either when I started. And that's after, 20 something years of ice hockey, so I
So
found some gloves on
yeah,
there
so
and
talk about that. Like, because I didn't know that until I came until I played with you guys. Like
yeah,
and I'll just say it, Napper. So when you were wearing Napper gloves and then you had Napper stick and some other guys had that too, I'm like, what is going on? Like, what is
right,
this? Is it like lacrosse or
right.
what was it? So yeah, go ahead and talk about the specific gear or equipment for the ball hockey.
Yeah, so like you said with Napper, they're probably the biggest ball hockey manufacturer as far as the sport's concerned. Just all sorts of different sticks, helmets, gloves, you name it, shoes. Even they've got specialized shoes, shin guards, everything like that. And they do have an association with Hagen. Hagen is their American distributor
Mm-hmm.
as well. So Napper is more Canadian, I believe, there in Quebec. So, but it is something that, like a lot of their equipment, it's very affordable and it's very durable. I have some Hagen gloves that I wear when I play ball hockey, and they're not much different as far as padding goes. It's just a little bit less dense, so a little bit closer to your hand. So not as bulky, anything like that, Ball hockey, it's actually pretty good. People are pretty good with their sticks. It's something that I've been pretty impressed with. They're pretty they're conscious of where that stick goes. And when we first started Red Rock hockey, we had a much slower speed as the kids were developing and everything. And a lot of kids didn't wear gloves or they didn't wear shin guards or anything like that. Obviously, they have to have the helmets on, and so we made sure that was the thing. But now that we're starting to see the speed increase because the kids are getting so good, we are really hoping to encourage parents this year. It's like, yeah, go ahead and throw some gloves on that kid, please. We don't want any fingers smashed or anything like that. And again, even if it's just shock or soccer shin guards, those help, So hopefully we can continue to grow the opportunity for equipment. And like you said, if like we had something that was just a little bit closer that kids could come try on, easy to tote around, everything like that, a mobile pro shop would certainly do it.
Yeah, absolutely. And to have the specific gear, because that's a huge part to that. Napper did great spot a great thing of the sport is just being different, because the ice gear is more bulky, right? Because it not only provides the protection, but there's also the insulation for the temperature,
Right.
So no, it's great because there is the comparison of the lacrosse gloves. Like, they're very similar but still different.
Sure.
The equipment, again, very light but necessary. It's funny you talk about the equipment, because when we had the tournament, I was wearing my elbow pads, right? And I usually just go and I'm like, I don't wear the equipment because I'm like, oh, okay, I'll be cautious and all that. But the
Right.
tournament was different, right? We were playing for pride, so I had to throw the elbow pads on. But it was funny, during warm up, I slid and landed on my elbow, but I had my elbow pads on, which are, to be honest, those elbow pads that I'm still wearing are 20 years old. Yeah, because they're from when I got it in college. They're Jofa.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I've got Joe elbow pads too.
Yeah,
They're the best, dude. I used to have to get them on eBay though. I
yeah,
didn't have a hookup like you.
yeah. No, it's funny. Like, but that, even though I could get new gear, right, almost every year, there, and that's where it actually goes back to an interview, with Chad O'Neill, just talking about superstitions, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there's another superstition out there, like Crosby's jockstrap or something, right?
Right, right, right.
Uh, the elbow pads and shin pads still have the same ones from college. It's just one of those things. It's a fit. It's a feel.
Yep, 100%. I still have mine from junior.
Yeah, So plus, it was back then, equipment was made, to essentially last. It was durable.
Yeah.
So, but no, we had some awesome interviews, man. We've had so many great people on the show. I don't want to take away, like, UNLV and those guys, like what they've been doing in the last 10 years, the progress that they're going to
Absolutely.
be on the horizon of, potentially going Division 1 for NCAA, but just the strides they've made, and we'll get them back on because there's other things to talk about it, as far as level of hockey. And George talked about it too, is at the University of Utah, just the types of players they're looking for and the
Right.
recruiting and junior and all that. But no, man, we've had some great people on. And then tomorrow, we're gonna have Jack Skilly. So I'm gonna be going at that one solo tomorrow with Jack Skilly, former NHL player, and I played against him when he was at the University of Wisconsin. But another great ambassador. He's up north in Park City, so we'll get to know a little bit more about Jack Skilly. But for segment 2 here, we're gonna dive in and talk Utah Hockey Club. We're gonna talk Vegas Golden Knights. So this is that segment of the give and go, because I'm gonna give it over to Tommy, because he's got some stuff here, and we're gonna just go back and forth and talk about some things, see what he has. I'll chime in, but there's obviously some struggles going on. All right.
Right. Right.
But Tommy, let's start with the Utah Hockey Club. I'm giving it over to you. What do you have for updates?
Yeah, well, obviously, big win last night over St. Louis. You have Keller with the 4 point night. Logan Cooley got involved again. You were really seeing everyone popping on all cylinders then, which was a great response because I know they had a tough 3 game loss in a row there between Montreal, New York, and I believe even the Islanders were included in that. That was a tough one. I believe a 1-0 loss. So honestly, it's just been the story about injuries. It's
Mm-hmm.
tough. I mean, again, I'm very excited they beat a good St. Louis Blues team last night. I'm not trying to discount that, but it's the time of year where you want to string together some consistency if you're fighting for a playoff spot, and it looks like they're currently 6 points out of that playoff spot right now. So you don't want that hole to get any bigger. You need to rip about 5 or 6 or 7 off in a row, get yourself established again in that playoff race because it's going to be tough coming out of the West Coast. But good news, other players are starting to step up. Josh Doan gets the call up and he scores a goal instantly. So they
Yeah.
felt his presence. And of course, the famous picture that will be throughout the year, Mr. Liam O'Brien with the blood coming down his face after the fight last night, getting his team into the game. 3 goals following that fight for the Utah Hockey Club. If they can take a little bit of that juice, get a little bit healthy, we'll see what they're being. I'm kind of questioning, and I want your opinion on this too, Gabe.
Yeah.
We're getting to a point where teams are kind of establishing themselves as buyers or sellers at the trade deadline coming up. I mean, I know
Yeah.
it's we think it's March and that's going to be another 8 weeks away, but that'll be here before we know it. Buyers, sellers, what would you do if you're in these shoes?
You know what? It's tough because the thing is I want to give a lot of credit to this interview with so Jay Stevens from the Utah Puck Report had Bill Armstrong on his show, and they talked about a lot of things, and one was just the patience and the understanding of what their overall goal is as an organization, and that comes from the ownership,
Right.
right? So the thing about the teams and building a team, it's not just the coach, and that management. It's that ownership too, and so just we'll talk about Vegas just real quick, but that was the mentality from day one with Vegas, right? Bill Foley wanted to win,
Right.
and so that was the message from the top. And so there's going to be a message too because you have development, right? Because you look at every sport and the franchise, like the franchise of those programs, differ. They fluctuate. Like
Mhm.
football, right now you have the Kansas City Chiefs. Put an asterisk next to every year they win. Well, you put an asterisk next to the Patriots wins, and all that stuff. Like
Right.
you're still going to have those franchises. But going back to Utah Hockey Club, I would. I've said it before about goaltending, right? And this is where the NHL is really starting to transition to that tandem goaltending. And New York specifically, like people are like, well, what do you mean tandem? Well, before goalies would play like a starting goalie plays 60 games a year.
Right.
Right? Pretty much three quarters of a season. That was your go-to guy, and then he'd bring you through to the playoffs. But now it's changed where you're going essentially tandem. So you're splitting the time, or it's like a 60-40. So like in New York, you have Quick and Shesterkin, right? So that's what I would look at first is getting a good tandem goaltender set, right? Getting and I'm not like discrediting Vamelka and Ingram and all that, but I feel they would be the second part of the tandem, to be honest.
Each one you're talking about,
Yeah,
like they would make a good tandem to another elite
correct.
goal. Yeah, I see what you're saying.
Yeah. Um, and then like the scoring power, like Cooley, you have Cooley right now. Your youngest kid is also your most dominant firepower.
Right.
So then I'd look at veteran leadership. That veteran leadership, and it doesn't come from the like the aggressiveness and all that, but it's it's the consistency on the ice night in and night out.
Yeah.
So that's where I would, put some money into a, veteran that is probably, 2, 3 years away from the end of their career, but he's going to bring good leadership.
Yeah.
And then a goal scorer, just a pure goal scorer is what I feel. So buying and selling, I don't know. Like I said, there's a lot to play with, especially with this team. And then you also have, like you said, with Josh Stone,
Right.
coming up. Like there's also a great, great farm system. And I think he was selected too for the AHL All-Star game.
Yep, he was indeed. No, I mean that's kind of why I'm thinking if I'm Armstrong and I'm in my seat, I have major injuries to some of my best players in Nick Schmaltz and or not Nick Schmaltz, Sean Dursey. Sorry, I always get them confused. I have no idea what that is.
Yeah,
You have
I
a
think
major
they won
injury to
right?
Sean Dursey. You have Maverick Lamoureux, who just came off of a major injury. You've got Dylan Gunther, who now just went down for a major, with what seems to be a little bit of more major injury. And then the other night, Sergachev gets hurt too.
Yeah.
And so now you're sitting here, you're like, okay, I have all these prospects, I have all these draft picks, I have all this cap space. All my best players are hurt. I can't really move right now. The names that I've heard are the Nick Schmaltz in deals. Like I saw something on X the other day that was middle stat for Schmaltz, and I was just like, that's an interesting thought. Or I know Lawson Krause's name's been out there as well. I just don't know if we could get the kind of return that we're looking for, just because his value's down a little bit. And so it's just kind of interesting. It puts a GM in a very difficult spot, and it's something that Vegas doesn't really have an issue with. You talk about buying and selling. I mean, they're firing on a lot of different cylinders as far as production goes. I know this week has been obviously the bump in the road that we were talking about. So lead us into Vegas, man, and I'll tell you what I got for you.
Well, before we lead into Vegas, I just want to talk about just the difference with the franchises. And I would on it. So, and this is where Bill Armstrong talks about the patience, from a fan base with Utah Hockey Club.
Right.
And we've talked about with them finding their identity and, do you buy, do you sell, do you, look at your farm system and all that. Where Vegas, they had a blank slate to go and pick, a certain select players.
Right.
And you can say, those players were more hungry. Others said, those players weren't wanted on teams or whatever. But at least they got to go and pick a select few.
Right.
So that's where I would if I'm an owner and I had the choice, I would take what Foley's deal was, and
Yeah.
and come in and have that whole franchise draft versus the being rushed into buying the team and then having the product, be, I'm not going to say subpar, but
Right.
but they're like you said, they're creeping up on a playoff spot. But as far as their standings, they played 45 games so far. They have 19 wins, 19 losses, so they're 500.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and they're sitting 2 spots out of last place in the Central Division. So it's really not a bad year, but it's not a great year.
Right.
So that's where there is a lot of movement that needs to happen. And then having the injuries does not help from a managerial standpoint, because then you start to question, what do I do?
Right.
So yeah, it's tough, but I agree. It's patience. And usually when you have a franchise, saying that, it means that they are working on something, because it goes back to what I was talking about before of, just how franchises kind of go that up and down. And, you had the Red Wings, the Avalanche, you had the Chicago Blackhawks, you had the Boston Bruins, right? The St. Louis Blues, like all these teams that just went through these movements. LA Kings, right? There was just, you had franchises that went through these movements because of their development system, their development path, but then also their draft picks and all that.
Right.
So yeah, I'd say just be patient. But Vegas, like you said, just it's guns a blazing, night in, night out. It's win, and if you don't win, you figure out why you didn't and don't let it happen again. So, what do you got for Vegas?
Well, no, I mean it just speaks to, like I said, they hit a little bump in the road, and you're gonna kind of expect that, especially with how big of a heater they were on early on in the season. They earned themselves enough points to earn that cushion, and obviously, I know Bruce Cassidy's not going to be too happy about the last three losses that they've had in a row here, especially one of them being to the Predators, one of them being to the Blackhawks. Those are tough losses where they're at in the standings right now. The one loss that does make sense is to the Carolina Hurricanes. That's obviously a 50-50 game when you play them 10 times. So, but still, you look at Pavel Dorofeyev. If he continues to impress, I think he's just coming up over the 20-goal mark this year. So they've got him at a really good cap number next year, like we've mentioned previously on the podcast. Tomas Hertl, too, he's really starting to find his game. He's coming up on the 20-goal mark as well. And even though they haven't got a lot of production this week, I think it's just going to be a small blip on the radar. Get a little bit better goaltending. You're kind of in the doldrum of the season. It's kind of that midway mark where things start to become a grind. You start to see what teams are really identifying themselves as, who's going to take the strength hold in the divisions, who's going to establish a really good playoff spot, and who's going to be some of those teams that maybe were just a flash in the pan. I think we know what Vegas is, and I think if we're going to talk buyers or sellers for them, I do think they're buyers this year. I do think they're not going to buy as much as they have in the past, though, which will be really interesting. I think they're looking for a good winger. I don't know who that would be. I would think, you know what? I've said it all year. I know he's not a winger. Why wouldn't you not bring Nazem Kadri into Vegas?
Yeah. With Eichel?
Yeah. I mean, you look down the middle. If you've got Eichel, Kadri, and I'm trying to think who would play center on the third line there. But, I mean, that's a stud of a line there. I guess you got Hertl. Hertl would play. Well, no, Hertl's on the wing. Never mind. But anyway, I digress. But as far as Vegas's production and this blip on the radar, not too concerned with it. Edmonton is catching up to them in points, so I believe they're both tied for the Pacific lead at the top of the division there.
So speaking of that, right, and I have it pulled up because I was going to talk about just how close the race is, or just how close the Pacific is. And you talked about Edmonton, so now they're tied. So it's identical, and then the stats are crazy. So both teams 46 games played, both teams 29 wins, 14 losses, 3 overtime losses, 61 points, identical. The Knights have 156 goals for, the Oilers have 151. Goal differential, Golden Knights plus 29, Oilers plus 25.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Now, if you start to look at that playoff picture, I'm sure if you've got them pulled up right there, you'll start to see the negative goal differential teams are out of the playoffs. I believe Boston just got bumped out of the playoffs with that loss over Ottawa last night as well. You start to see that stat. That's the most important stat right there.
Yeah, absolutely. The goal differential is huge. And we talked about that before in one of our first episodes, I believe, or one of our first, is just the plus minus. So you don't want to be on the ice even strength, and that's where that differential, or the goals against, comes in. That stat is how many goals are you scoring versus goals the opponent is scoring. And so, like you said, with Boston, man, they're minus 23 goal differential,
right?
And it's it's a stat, and like people are like, okay, well, why do you look at that? Well, it's one of those same stats that, if you want to talk about comparison of sports, football, everyone talks about the playoffs is teams that have 30 or more points, or the their average wins are like 30 or more points, usually make the playoffs or go far in the playoffs, right? Except for the Chiefs, they've always been the anomaly stat. Right. But there's always going to be, it's performance based,
right?
That's all it is. It's performance based, and the Vegas Golden Knights always continue to perform because they're not only finding a way, but they have guys that just continue to roll in their lineup. And that's another thing too that you see consistently with high playoff teams is they're rolling four lines, or they have guys that are producing numbers, goals and assists at an even rate. Like, yes, McDavid, Draisaitl, they're going to be in the 150 point range, right? But then you look at those other guys, they're going to be right in that 70, 80, 85, all in the same range. Where same with the Golden Knights, right? They're just consistent with their points.
Absolutely.
So, um, Vegas, what about, because Keegan Kolesar, right? They re-signed him.
Mm-hmm.
How are they looking? And then let's also talk about the Utah Hockey Club as far as like re-signs, or guys that would be like a free agent.
Yeah.
What do you got on that?
Well, I believe a lot of them are restricted, and this is all off the top of my head, but I do check that quite a bit. I do believe there's a lot of players coming off a contract. Lawson Krause is one of those players. Oli Mata is coming up on his deal. Oli Mata is one of those guys. He's got 2 Stanley Cups with Pittsburgh, and you get him at a cheap number. I believe he's in at $3 million right now. I don't know what he's going to ask with the cap going up, but I would imagine it's probably around that same number. I don't know if you keep that going in. Michelli, I believe, is coming up on restricted free agency, so he'll probably demand a little bit of a higher salary, I would have to imagine. I'm not sure if he's got arbitration rights, but if he does, that's going to probably work in his favor. And let's see who else off the top of my head. Clayton Keller signed long term. Logan Cooley, I think we're still at least until I think he can sign an extension if he wants. We're probably going to back up the Brinks truck for him, and I don't blame us for that. Get him on a long term deal. I think he's proven himself there. But you can definitely tell they've built around their core. Jersey signs his deal. Gunther signs his deal that goes in next year. Again, we're going to get Cooley signed. So those are your core players. Pretty much everyone else outside of that, they're either going to be expiring UFAs this year, they're going to be restricted free agents, just meaning that Utah has their rights to talk to them first before they can actually go to any other team. And there's a couple other little things that are in that, but not important right now. So that's kind of what I know off the top of my head. But.
All right, let's want to make sure we're accurate.
Here, I can pull it up. If you go to Puckpedia, that's what I use.
What'd you go to?
Puckpedia.
Puckpedia.
Yeah, so if you go to Puckpedia, and then just click on Utah, I'm going to do right here, and then you scroll down to the bottom. So like Kerfoot, for example, his deal's up this year. Bukestad is up this year. Carconi's up this year. I know he's been wanting more of a spot and more playing time, and he's had good moments of good production. Ian Cole's go up at the end of the year. Oli Mata, like I said before. Robert Bertuzzo, who he's on the IR right now, and then Nick DeSimone, who I believe we picked up off of waivers this year. Famelka's up after this year as well, and I could see him demanding a little bit more money. That is the one thing about Ingram and Famelka that I like. That tandem is pretty affordable at $1.95 million for Ingram and $2.73 million for Vimoka.
Yeah.
So,
yep, you're right on that as far as price. So, but yeah, Puckpedia, great site. It used to be like Cap Geek or something like that.
Yeah, cap friendly. Yeah, and then the Washington Capitals bought it because they didn't want the contracts public information. So Puckpedia is pretty cool. If you head over to Daily Faceoff too, that's got some good information over there too that you can pick up on these things. I'm kind of a salary cap nerd. It's a really fun way to see what's going on and what moves can be made if anyone is going to be in business with anyone. Plus, with the trade deadline coming up, I'm bored. I like to see what the speculation's like, see who's going to be on the move.
So with that, let's go to Vegas. Let's click on Vegas and
on Vegas, the one thing, I mean, they are true to their name. It is high risk, high reward. So it's always difficult to see what they're going to do no matter what kind of contract they have.
It looks like no free agents this season. But
looks like Victor Olofsson looks like he's coming up. He's been big for him. Tanner Pearson, he got in on a PTO this year. And then they've got Cole Schwint as an RFA with arbitration rights. They've got Alexander
I've
Holtz.
seen his name in a few games recently.
Yeah, but all of their D's locked up pretty well. They don't have any deals except for Nick Hague, who he's probably going to demand some money. He's an RFA with arbitration rights as well. But both goalies up at the end of the year. And Aiden Hill, after winning a Stanley Cup, after being on the Four Nations Canadian team, I think that number of 4.9 million is probably going to go north of 7, depending on who wants him in free agency. I don't know if Vegas is going to pay him. Vegas has that next man up mentality, and I kind of like what they do with their goalies. Ilya Samsonov or Samsonov, depending on who you talk to. People say it different ways. I don't know if he's coming back next year either. I think he's filled in good, but I do think that they'll probably have other goalies that they look to sign, depending on what the results are at the end of the year. But
Yeah.
imagine if they get a second cup, Aiden Hill's number is going to go even north of 7, probably with the cap going up. So
yeah, I don't know. I don't know. Would that be something Utah makes a move at?
here's the thing about goalies is you look at the minute that they sign the deals, the production kind of goes the other way. Like the best example and the most recent example is Tristan Jarry on the Pittsburgh Penguins.
Okay.
They just signed him to, I believe, a 5-year, $5.625 million extension last year, and they just put him on waivers the other day. Jack Campbell, the year before, Edmonton Oilers throws a 5x5 at him. He goes up, plays 20 games in the NHL, gets put on waivers again, then gets bought out by Edmonton. Ville Husso, the Detroit Red Wings, he signs a 3-year deal around that $5 million figure. And he's been in AHL probably more than he's been in the NHL the last 3 years. It's just one of those things where it's tough to pay a goalie that much money. You know, if you got a person like Shesterkin, obviously he's worth his contract. You got a person like, UC Saros, anything like that. I'll tell you what, Askarov out of San Jose, he's going to get paid. I think he signed a 1 year, $1.1 million extension this year, but it was only a 1-year deal. So he'll be up for you or restricted free agency this year. It's tough to pay goalies. I don't know. It's one of those things that everyone's looking for, and they can't seem to find the right fit. And if you have it, you're going really far in the playoffs. But if you don't have it, it creates a lot of havoc. Just ask the Colorado Avalanche this year and how many goalies they've been through.
It's crazy. So, such a carousel. But, it's funny too, because like because the funnel, right? The amount of elite goaltenders really starts to taper off as you go higher up. But the amount of goaltenders that are available at the junior and collegiate level is just crazy.
No, right?
How many extra goaltenders are available for teams? But no, that's good. Good stuff. Good recap. Like it. And leads us into our final segment, which is going to be all things Utah hockey. And there's a lot of stuff going on, not only with, the Utah Hockey Club, where they've rolled out their learn to play programs, where I believe they started in Ogden and up north was when they got it going. And then Red Rock Ball Hockey, as we talked about that too, Tommy. Registration is closed.
Yep.
So Dougie made sure that I got registered. So I took care of putting my name in. So I did that.
No, that's good. No,
so I'm ready. And then is just talking with like texting with Corey too, is the signups and getting people, and that's where, as we talked about too, and more people just need to know, is sign up.
Right.
Like we have the gear that is the rental gear. It is donated gear. We have the sticks, but again, it's the fun the kids have.
Right.
And also as a parent, to see them with a new skill set, and that's the cool part, because playing ice hockey is hard. It's really hard.
Yep.
But playing hockey in itself is tough too, whether it's on rollerblades or on your feet.
Mm-hmm.
then with a puck or with a ball, and it's just different, right, Tommy? Because you've played all the levels as well, and with Red Rock ball hockey, that's where with the kids we are playing on feet, so it is ball hockey, but it is different. It's a different skill set because playing with a ball versus puck, playing on your feet versus playing on blades. But then getting started is really next to nothing. Just you get the jersey and it pays for the court time, but you've
Yeah,
been
absolutely.
doing it for now 4 years, and there's talk of expansion,
Right.
right, which is huge. And uh and then Corey with the school programming, which we'll talk more about that at another episode and talk to him because I know he's been working on a bunch of stuff, you and him, with
Right.
the schooling and all that. But with Red Rock ball hockey, we have the registrations closed, but you can still sign up. Like, just sign up. We're not going to turn you away.
No, exactly.
No.
No, and believe it or not, like we saw a lot of increasing numbers again this year, which is really cool. We saw a huge increase in our tier 2 adult league, which is awesome because it's the first time that we've actually increased a large amount of pull through in the adult division. So that means more people want to come out and try it. And like you said, hockey's one of those things. Believe it or not, you're better at it than you think. Especially when you're playing on foot. Everyone knows how to run. You teach you how to hold a stick, and pretty much from there, people jump on board pretty quickly. So it's something that we want to do. And when we were talking about the women's game earlier too, that is something that we want to grow. We want to make an all women's division, ground all the way down, or ground all the way up, rather. Sorry. So if it's something that, even like a young women's group wants to get involved in, anything like that, we are someone who's willing to help facilitate that. We want to grow the women's sport just as much as the sport in itself. And like you said, bring your shoes. We've got the sticks, we've got the helmets, and we've got a desire and a passion to teach more people about it. So get on there, register. If the registration is closed, just obviously hit us up. We'd rather know sooner rather than later, so we can get you your jersey because that's very important to us. We want to treat you like a pro. And so we just need you to do those things for us to be able to do that for you. So very much appreciated. And thank you to everyone who has already signed up. It's going to be a great success. And Red Rock Hockey, dude, to the moon. I'm telling you, we're moving mountains down here in the St. George area. Something that's really, really good to be a part of. And obviously, Gabe helps and volunteers for us as well. So take the time to pat yourself on the back, good sir. That's something we love. But
I'd love to, but my shoulders doesn't go that way. But no, thank you. And with that too is redrockhockey.com. I posted it. I'll continue to post it. But the other thing too is sponsors, right? We wouldn't be where we are, like Corey mentioned in the interview, is just the gear that's donated, but then sponsors, which is huge. So there is a sponsorship form on the website too. If you want to be involved, if you want to get your name out in the community. I know there's a lot of new businesses that are starting to open up, in the St. George area. So this is a great opportunity to help youth hockey, youth programming, but also advertise your business as well. So
absolutely appreciate that too.
yeah, no, and that's how things essentially operate from the ground up, is getting those the sponsors and helping pay for the equipment, because that's the biggest obstacle, is trying to get that equipment
Absolutely.
in the rink time. But Corey's been awesome. You, Dougie, fantastic. And then with hockey too, up north in Cedar City, Enoch, KJ's Ice Barn, they've changed up their website so it looks awesome. It'll more user friendly, where you can navigate and see where the programs are. So a lot of great stuff that they've been doing since the grand opening October 4th. So there's the youth hockey programs, there's the adult league, there's learn to skate, and then of course the junior team, which is the USPHL, and that's the Iron County Yeti. And the owners of the rink just recently, like, they bought the team too, so they now officially own that franchise. So there'll be more involvement in the community, and that's where, Tommy, we talked about too, just what hockey's all about is just having that community, having a volunteer base. And so the Thane family, and a good friend of theirs, they now own that franchise, which is huge for the development of the community, but then just the growth of hockey too, especially being, the first rink in Southern Utah that's permanent. And then why not add a junior franchise
Absolutely.
next to, right? So, and you've been up there, so you got to see that tournament that, Melissa was coaching and
Yep.
all that. What was your take on it? And it's more than just a rink.
Oh, absolutely. No, it was great. Great environment too. I think it's a great placement. Obviously you're right there in the mountains with Enoch. It's a beautiful area. You're about 6,000 feet, so you're tucked right up against a good mountainside, which is always a good environment for an ice hockey rink. And then you go in there, they've got some pickleball courts, they've got some things like that. I think I even saw some batting cage stuff back there, but I don't know. Maybe that's stuff for a future day. But the one thing I was really impressed by is just their welcoming feeling when you walk into that front area. Just the exposed wood on the desks, the chairs, everything like that. Obviously, the Fane family, they know how to run stuff, and they've been doing it well since it's opened. And they had obviously the largest part of advocating to get it open. So they're very proud of their product, and they should be. And then when you step into the ice there, it's nice. It's cold. I like that. I know not a lot of hockey rinks anymore are cold. If you want good ice, it has to be cold in there. And I just the smell of going in the rink, everything like that. I wanted to lace up my skates so bad and get out there, and I need to do that. Especially, I'm not getting any little around the middle, so I got to get
It's
back in
a
shape
great
here.
workout. Yeah, it's a great workout. So, no, you're right. They are going to have batting cages. So those were the pitching machines. So batting cages, pickleball courts. There's a gym. They're going to have an arcade as well too. But you're right. The feel, it's the wood. So that's all custom. So
Oh yeah.
Chad is naturally gifted at carpentry and
Mm.
woodwork, and so he did all of the woodwork in KJ's ice barn. So the obviously it was supplied, the wood was supplied, but he did all the craftsmanship for that, which is awesome. So,
Absolutely.
but yeah, KJ's, they're continuing to grow. That area is continuing to grow too. Just with the establishment of a rink, it's just one of those things that it's going to bring people. You know, it's a concept because, and that's the thing too, is if you look at ice rinks around the country, there's just shy of 2,500, just under 2,500 public or private ice rinks in the United States.
Mm.
Just to like make a comparison, golf courses, 17,000, over 17,000 public golf courses in the United States.
Wow.
Yeah, a crazy stat. I saw that the other day. So, but KJ's coming around. They're gonna keep building on hockey too, and that's where I think that USPHL thing is gonna help for them as well, and getting more players, getting some advancement in their programming. But another thing too is them being able to host tournaments. So there'll be tournaments that'll be in that area, which is cool because you're, like you said, you're at like 6,600 feet, right? So you're gonna get that high altitude feel. But then you just go down the hill in the canyon and you're here in St. George, Hurricane, and you get Zion and Bryce Canyon, and even Kolob. So you can hit Kolob Canyon too,
Right.
right off the highway, which is I'd consider it's like a hidden gem that a lot of people, unless you're local or you have a podcast that people are like, oh, I follow you for travel.
Yeah.
But
And now we just blew up the spot.
but well, that once we get to like 1,000 or more followers, then it would mean something. But I do appreciate it. We have grown, so we've gone. I think we're just shy of 40 now, which is
There we go.
So
Hey, brick by brick. Hey, if Chad's got to do the woodworking at the Enoch rink, this is just our woodworking for tomorrow as well.
yeah, man, for sure. So, um, and then just the hockey too in Utah, and there's going to be more hockey as things are growing, and that's where people that are fans of the game, just be patient as well too, because there's going to be more hockey available. Like we talked about with Corey, there's talks about expanding the City Park JC Still Park with more ball hockey, and then there's talks about an ice rink and what's that going to look like and all that. So there's going to be more things, patience, because again, the Utah Hockey Club, they got the team at an expedited rate,
Mm.
and like George Chalice was talking about in the interview too, is like the business. There's more to it than just the team, and then you know what's going on is it takes time. So it
Right.
takes time to build essentially a new franchise. But Tommy, there's a lot of stuff going on. That's why we continue to have this, and there's more people that are going to start coming out to talk to. And I think there's actually another guy you're working on is Thomas Gaddett, right?
Yes, indeed. Yeah, just waiting for him to get back to me on his scheduling. But yeah, he was gracious enough to leave a comment on the podcast episode and said thanks for the shout out there. So I'm glad he was listening, and hope we can get him on and interview him because he's got some cool stories too. He was a fun player to play alongside.
Yeah, for sure. And he experienced just the different levels too, and the US, minor pro amateur, and then also playing in Europe too, which is cool. So
Yeah, absolutely.
right on, man. Well, hey, this was nice and long. So
Yeah,
thanks, Sam, and your kids for the patience. But as we end every episode, we have a quote.
absolutely.
Tommy, what quote do you have for us today?
Well, we talked about a lot of things. We talked about community. We talked about, the Utah Hockey Club, Vegas, everything like that. And then ultimately what's going on in our local community with it. And really, it just got me thinking about how fun hockey is. And when we're at that fun point where, it's everywhere around us, people are talking about it more and more. I'm starting to see more Utah Hockey Club shirts around the St. George area. It's just getting popular, and good things are on the horizon. So I figure we might as well have a fun quote for the week. And this actually comes from the late, great Johnny Gaudreau. Obviously, Johnny and Matthew Gaudreau passed away in the horrific traffic accident that happened in the offseason this year, where they were both struck as they were riding their bikes. And it also happened to be the day before their sister's wedding, which is why they were in town. So it's something that it's a story that people will never forget. And honestly, it's something that I hope we never forget how good of a person Johnny was for the game and everything like that. He had a lot of fun, and his brother Matthew had a lot of fun as well at the very high levels that they did. They did a lot for a game. So our tribute to them is a quote from the late, great Johnny Gaudreau. Have fun right now. If you do pursue this career, you'll have plenty of opportunities to take hockey very, very seriously. But right now, just appreciate and build on whatever you love about the game. Enjoy hanging out with your buddies on the ice. No matter how big you make it, you'll miss that time when it's gone. Try that move, look silly, and get better. So, little fun quote. Never take yourself too serious. It's always a good reminder. Without fun, we wouldn't be doing this. So it was something, I know it's a little bit of a lengthy one, but I came across, I was like, yeah, it's a little bit different. We'll throw a little salt and pepper in this time. But
Man, I love it. I love it. Great quote, great players, great men, great ambassadors. Tragic story. I'm Gabe Goche, Tommy Rupp for the Southern Utah Hockey Report. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, ring the bell for notifications, share the video, and of course, thanks for watching.
see you at the rink.
Right on.